Okay, welcome to our channel once again. Um, Following on from our previous video, today we are going to discuss Brexit or Brexit, the pros and cons. And we are looking at issues like trade, EU budget, British influence, migration, the cost of goods and services, security within Europe, and labor, obviously labor, working hours, and so many other issues. Now, anything that is said here is my own opinion. I do get the opportunity to go around a lot, and I do talk to a lot of people just to get a general feel of what people are thinking since we sign up to Brexit and all the issues that has been ongoing since the COVID times. There are other, basically just to set the parameters right. The idea of this platform is to give a voice to, obviously, to the right and to the left, to those who think that they are obviously broadcasting basically mainstream news. And also we look at things like the conspiracy theories. So just to look at all the angles and bring everyone into the conversation, to see if sometimes the conspiracy theories are actually right or not. Issues to do with fake news and all that. So we just give a voice to everyone to listen to everyone's opinion to find out where we are, if we're doing the right thing, if we're going the right direction. And so that is the purpose of the videos that we're making on the issues concerning Brexit. And so we tend to find that in order for us to establish when we are being told the truth, is that one way that one can easily find out if the right thing is being said or if the truth is being told to the public is the fact that the words of politicians will match the actions. So I even put more emphasis on the actions, on the things that are being done rather than the things that are being said, because many things we are told many things, but in reality, when it comes to practice, these things are not done. And so this is where sometimes the conspiracy theories, when you listen to them, you also can learn something from their angle. Or sometimes in the heat of the moment, or when there is a debate, or when there is a situation that comes under debate, initially alternative opinion or alternative ideas, when they are expressed, they may quickly be shut down as conspiracy theorists. But what we then find is that along the way, when we begin to experience the situation and how things progresses, we sometimes come back to revisit these things, and then we realize that sometimes things that we may originally have thought that they were conspiracy ends up to be the right thing. And so this is why we give the voice, we give that room for people to have alternative thinking and to bring their thinking to the board. And so in recent times, we see the reuniting of the British Premier Sir Keir Starmer and the head of the European Commission, i.e., as a way of re-establishing relations in relations to all the ongoing issues with the tariffs that are coming from the United States of America. So we are seeing almost like a reunion. We are seeing Britain going back into Europe to play a role. And so this is contrary to Brexit. It's contrary to all the resources that the nation put into Brexit, into obviously the referendum, the amount of money spent, the time wasted in campaigns and debates, national debates, the national divide, the cost of the conversations that we had, and even the changing of so many prime ministers. Obviously, we have the likes of Theresa May coming and going, and each one of them coming in, having an election to gain a mandate. And then we see Boris Johnson also come in. Then he also obviously brings in another election to get the mandate of the people. All these things have cost this nation a great deal. Then we see the likes of Theresa May also coming in. And any time that they have served as prime ministers, this cost the nation so much when they are done with their services. And so the many or the more prime ministers we have, the more cost it is to the nation. And so this is what we have experienced. But now, seeing that Keir Starmer is back in Europe, trying to rewrite the Brexit rules, trying to somehow negotiate a soft Brexit, i.e., looking at things like the re-entry into the single market, possibly the customs union, and also the free trade agreement. These are all actions that are moving in the direction of a soft Brexit. So what you also tend to find is that there is always a gap. There is always a gap between what we say when we are not in a situation or when we campaign for a situation and the actual reality when these things are finally put into action. The reality is that when you look at something like technology, obviously technology is a great thing, it's a good thing, and we've had so much advancement in the past 10 to 20 years. There's been so much change in technology, and you look at when obviously these things are being pioneered, even in the field of medicine and all these medical advancement, they are always a very positive thing. It has a positive side to it, but it also has a negative side to it. And this goes for any kind of argument that you want to make to support a view. And so in the case of Brexit, you will notice that obviously the Leave campaign had their talk on the budget, how much we were spending on budget, how we could take full control of our borders, how we could take control of our laws and make our own rules and regulations, how we could source out our own labor according to the needs of the economy, and also even who we wanted to come in, i.e., say no to our European Union neighbors and saying yes to obviously nations that are very far in terms of geographical distance from the UK. And so, these were all arguments that were put across. And obviously, the banging on issues to do with immigration as a way of influencing people in supporting the Leave campaign. But then the reality is that, just as I mentioned that in any situation there is a negative and a positive, we have realized that since we have gone Brexit, um, these promises have not necessarily materialized. So, in the same way, if you look at the Remain campaign, they were also saying that obviously staying with with the EU, they were our nearest neighbors, i.e., in terms of trading, they were our biggest trading partner. And obviously, looking at things like red tape, and even avoiding tariffs were a good reasons, obviously, on the side of trade for us to stay in the union. Then we look at things like regulation. Once again, within the union, there were regulations basically uniting all the nations under European uh, regulations, which had a wider um, or beneficial way of protecting the individual. Um, you know, so in terms of regulations, there were also standard regulations, i.e., budgetary regulations, pricing regulations, so many other regulations within the union that were beneficial to the people of this nation. And so once you lose that, then you find yourself in a country where laws are being made so rapidly. When a political party comes to power, once they have a majority in parliament, they can use that parliamentary supremacy to just keep changing laws by the day. So many other laws coming through because it becomes easier to make these laws, sometimes not to the benefit of the ordinary person. So that is something that we've also seen. When it comes to things like immigration, the fact that when Brexit, have not necessarily reduced immigration, obviously issues with immigration, i.e., migration in general, there's always an inflow and an outflow. Just as people are coming into this country, so are British people also going into other countries. And so the net migration position may not have necessarily changed in any way since this nation have gone Brexit. The only thing that is probably evident is the fact that you have said no to your European neighbors that are nearer to you and said yes to other people that are far away, say China, Japan, India, Africa, America, Canada, and said no to the people that are nearest to you. So the question is that how beneficial is that to the nation if you say yes to the people that are very geographically very far from you, that may have probably different ways of doing things or different cultural values, and then saying no to Europeans that are nearer to you that may probably have similar cultural values, economic values, political values. If you say no to them and then you say yes to others, how does that benefit this nation? So obviously, this is the argument for the Remain. Then you look at obviously all the red tapes, and as we know now, in most recent times, the report that came out indicated that there is a drop of, obviously, in the level of trading that this country had with Europe, that it has dropped by 5%, which is very significant when it comes to numbers. Then you're looking at things like security, European security. So we find ourselves now that because of the issues in Russia and Ukraine, Britain is having to go back into Europe to play a role in, in European security and even budgetary requirements, because no man is an island and no nation is an island. Every nation needs to collaborate with other nations, and in so doing, does lose some aspects of its sovereignty. There's always a trade off, it's a give and take. So you must give some of yourself to become part of a union. So you cannot have a situation where you can claim absolute sovereignty and yet expect to be an effective member of a union. And you cannot have it both ways. You must sacrifice some part of your sovereignty to be part of the union. So we see that in view of the threats from Russia, and also in most recent times, the trade wars that has been ignited by the President of the United States, we see Britain running back to Europe, and Europe obviously embracing Britain. So obviously we'll go into this as I, you know, get back on screen. You will see the most recent relations between the head of the European Union and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Sir Keir Starmer. And so it is necessary for this relationship with the European Union to be reviewed and to choose a path, a much softer Brexit path, where Britain is going to be looking at the idea of going back into the single market, going back into the customs union, and engaging in a free trade agreement, FTA, as a way of removing all the red tapes and the barriers. Then you look at, obviously, access into Europe, with our youngsters ever willing so to have an opportunity to work elsewhere outside the borders of this country. It is necessary that that relationship is re-established. And also, we have also noticed shortages, especially issues to do with the NHS, where Britain came up with a skilled worker scheme, taking people in from Africa, from India, from elsewhere to come and serve in that area. We have seen a lot of them come in, and obviously they have had their own challenges. The cost, the cost of living in the nation has gone up so much, and these people have come in paying huge sums of monies just to get that license and that opportunity to live and to work in the nation. A lot of them have struggled. I have come into contact with certain people that have struggled just to make ends meet, and yet these people are working. And obviously, there is a certain shortage of skilled labor in the NHS, positions that were probably previously occupied by workers from the European Union. And so you see that all these are major problems. But the more important problem was the resources, the amount of resources that were pushed into having this referendum, the cost of the campaigns, and even when the voting had been casted, and obviously the nation had made that decision according to the election that obviously the nation was going Brexit. Even from that time to the point where there were these numerous replacements of conservative prime ministers, the cost of that, the cost of those respective elections that they had, the cost to the nation of these ex-premiers being paid annually, just being in that position, is huge. It's huge. And obviously, finally getting that Brexit done by former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, all that cost only to find ourselves back in Europe. You know, monies that could have been used to help, people in the nation, i.e., in terms of creating jobs, in terms of basically looking at regulation. I mean, regulation is a big thing that really we need to be engaging in, obviously, in this country, because since Brexit, if you are not in a position where you are selling something, you are in trouble in terms of how you survive, because prices have just gone up and up and up. And I will say, on average, most prices have gone up at least 30 to 40%, and in some instances, over 100%. I will just mention briefly today, as I walk into a B&Q, I remember that pre-COVID, I was buying a bag of multi-finish, a 25 kg bag of multi-finish. Obviously, we use this to do a bit of plastering work in the house. This pre-COVID was about £4.50. Today, when I walk into a B&Q, it was £9.75 a bag. So this gives you an idea of how much cost, the cost. This is just a cost of a single item. But when you walk into a B&Q or many other supermarkets, DIY stores, furniture stores, wherever you go to, prices have just gone so high, and yet your income remains the same. And so you find out that, I mean, things like fuel, not bad, but property prices as well, they are not cheap. Rents are not cheap. So these are the areas where we want to see more regulation on prices. These prices, they must justify why prices have gone up that much on almost every single item. Now, if this is because of Brexit, which I don't think it is, but if it is, then was Brexit a wise decision? We open up this debate for you to come in, say your opinion. If you think that this has been great, I mean, surely there are some people that are benefiting enormously from all these things that have happened to this nation in this past few years. So you may be at the receiving end. Yeah, and it can be tough. It can be tough depending on which side you find yourself. And so, consumer goods. These are all issues. So, the debate, you have it. But the reality is that, how beneficial has it all been to you and I? And so this is why I put out this video to challenge you to speak up your mind At the moment, the stance that the British Prime Minister have taken going back into Europe is a positive, is a good thing. But here you are, certain conspiracy theories or people, certain people that I've spoken to, they have a completely different opinion. So they take this thing back as far back as COVID, where they think that there was something sinister going on, whereby this nation was separated from Europe and probably used to start off whatever agenda that there was to do with COVID. And then now that is all over, we find ourselves back into Europe. But sometimes, yes, you don't want to be reading too much into these things. But then sometimes you look at the fact that you have a Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, come in with that idea of getting Brexit done. But as soon as he arrives, he did not deal with Brexit. It wasn't what he came to do. He came to deal with COVID. And so, in more recent times, as people are waking up, they are beginning to see a gap between what is being said and what is being done. And so all these are really interesting arguments. And so we want you to share your experience. Do you think the Brexit thing has benefited you a lot? Do you think your cost of living has gone down? Do you think that the laws that are being passed in recent times since Brexit has been beneficial to you? Do you think that the cost that this nation picked up when they pushed that agenda to send people to Rwanda with the monies that probably we may have lose to Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and the fact that no flight actually took off, and the fact that there was so much that went into obviously fighting these things in the court, in the Supreme Court, and also Rishi Sunak using parliamentary supremacy to get that Rwanda bill into law. These were all huge costs. But then when Keir Starmer came, he scrapped this law. So you see a lot of wastage here. And, this nation needs to wake up and begin, or should I say, if it's the politicians, and begin to address the issues, the domestic issues, the cost of living crisis, how people are struggling, what models could be put in place to help the ordinary person on the street just to improve their standard of living. This is what matters to the ordinary guy. And so we put out this video, and the opportunity for young people also to go into Europe to work, to have a much broader life experience, even if it's for traveling. How well could they do this if we do not have a good relationship with our European Union neighbors? For example, in recent times when Donald Trump started the trade wars with Canada, and then Canada was quick to come into Europe. So you've got to look at your geographical distance. And sometimes it is best not to react to such things, but rather to take a more matured stance, to engage to the parties that are nearer to you, to engage in a dialogue, to engage in a conversation, to just not react, not meet fire with fire, because we see that a lot of ego, a lot of, meeting fire with fire. But the whole art of politics, or being a great politician, is having that wisdom to take it easy, look at what is around you, look at the benefits around you, rather than throwing those benefits away and seeking to get something. It's a bit like us saying, okay, we're going Brexit. We are doing away with our European unions, and now we are going to go in the wider world and have trade deals in Australia, trade deals here, trade deals there. Geographical distance, the cost of moving goods from one country to the other. So for example, just to give you a typical example, I could have a business. There were times that I have engaged in the past in a business where I was trying to set up an online store, and I had this American company come in. They had something really nice to talk about, and how you could set up and have your store online and just control everything. But then it came to issues to do with drop shipping. And so, in as much as the products were the pricing were very competitive, that you could get people buying stuff from your online store, the challenge actually came when you tried to deliver those goods to those customers, because the cost was now in the drop shipping, because most of these goods were coming from the States. And therefore, even if the person bought it cheap, the shipping cost was so high that it would have been better for the person to have actually purchased the item in the UK. You see. And so these are the sort of things that we are basically putting across about this whole issue with Brexit. But the more important issue was just the vote that we used in deciding this 51.8 to 42, is it 48.2% divide was not sufficient enough for such a major decision to take place. Normally, it should be a majority, a 2/3, 2/3 majority. A 60% would have been a better way to decide where the nation was going. The reality as we see it today is not that easy. So thank you for watching. Very much interested in hearing what your opinion is. Bring in your views. Let us know what you think. If this has been beneficial, this Brexit has been beneficial to you, say it. If you think that you had an expectation that has not materialized, you can also say, let us know how this has hit you. But personally, I have seen the cost, household utility cost has gone up. Water has gone up. Electricity has gone up. Gas has gone up in price. Food has gone up in price. Fuel has had an up and down. Not bad. But then again, if you're sort of using an electric vehicle or something like that, once again, you're going to see a crazy variation in charging cost. Are you with me? So all these things are very challenging. Rent prices has gone up. Almost anything that you can think about has gone up. In recent times, then we see the issues to do with obviously the stamp duty threshold reduction from 425,000 to 300,000 for first-time buyers. These are all things that are gonna stop people of, it's as if life is not tough enough for the youngsters that are trying to get on the property ladder. This is not gonna help them. And so there's just like so many issues. And what you also tend to realize is that when things are not going well, it is always the poor guy that is having the old, the elderly, the poor the weak, the disadvantaged, the disenfranchised, the very people that the nation is supposed to be looking after. They are the ones that are having to fork out when things go wrong. They are the ones that are having to pay for it. Pensioners have had some of their monies cut. There's just like so much going on. And so we are just calling for regulation, for for prices to be regulated, or at least for inspectors to go round to inspect supermarkets, inspect fuel or filling stations, inspect, look into rent, rent control. There has to be something to help the ordinary person to begin to feel, to get a little bit of a feel good factor, because this nation has seen too much in this past, I would say now, nearly 10 years. There has just been so much going on since 2016. You know, Brexit put the nation in a situation for so many years. Then COVID hit the nation. Then the cost of living crisis. There's got to be a point somewhere where something needs to turn around for the ordinary guy to begin to have some feel good factor. Because what we have to realize is that we are competing as a nation with the rest of the world. And so it is necessary that people within this nation have a better standard of living, to be better people, to be better citizens for this nation and also for the world. And so this is it. This is my own opinion that I have expressed today. Feel free to challenge me. Feel free to voice out your opinion. If you think that the things that I'm saying, or if you think that maybe I am complaining, then feel free to say that. And thank you once again for watching this video. So hopefully we come up again with the next topic. Everything that we do here is basically talk about the things that most people don't want to talk about, or people don't have time to talk about. I want to talk about it. I want to engage you in this conversation. So thank you for watching this video. Have a good night.